For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sanel Dlamini, political analyst Oprimajiki, discusses his latest column, South Africa Struggling to be Reborn. Your opening statement says South Africa we fought for is struggling to be reborn. You say it is being pushed back into the womb. Can you elaborate on that statement?
Well, what I'm talking about is the fact that we have either lost or are losing our idealism. And we are losing it because when South Africa, the new South Africa, our democracy, was born, there was a lot of expectation that this country would be a better place in many ways, socially, politically, economically, and otherwise. And therefore, it would be the antithesis of what apartheid society was. And what we find is that you still have vestiges of the old order, of the old colonial and the apartheid order. And the problem is that there's a lot of denial about the fact that the colonial and apartheid aspects of our lives are not in the past, are still in the present, and are a part of the lived reality of many, if not most, South Africans. That's the one part. The second part is that we are being betrayed by those who fought for liberation, who themselves are now betraying the values and principles which drove that liberation struggle. So to the extent that you have these acts of betrayal such as corruption, democratic deficits, arrogance of power, and so on, and to the extent that what we used to call colonialism of a special type is still with us, it seems the old is succeeding to suppress the new that is trying to emerge. So this new child, our democracy, was born, and there was some hope, especially during the first decade, but is now being pushed back into the womb.
Do you think our ancestors are proud of what South Africa has become?
I think we can go in one of two directions. We can go the completely pessimistic route of suggesting that nothing good has happened and nothing good is happening. And if we do that, our interpretation of what the ancestors see, maybe that all they see is what we see, and therefore nothing has changed, nothing good has happened, nothing good is happening, and therefore they are not proud of us. I suspect they would be proud of what has been achieved, but would be very unhappy of the failures and the weaknesses of the current order, especially since it is the failures and weaknesses of those who fought for liberation in the first place. I think they would be disappointed by the fact that today, 23 years later, you have a white person who can publicly say that colonialism was a good thing for black people. A statement to me which is not dissimilar from what people call Holocaust denial. Because what this person is doing is to deny the ravages and the impact of colonialism and its product, apartheid, on black lives and black people. And therefore, when you hear white people saying such things, you wonder whether this suggests that the task of building a non-racial society is an impossible task, or these are just reversals and they are temporary in nature, and if we work harder, maybe we'll go back to the path of building a non-racial society. So I suspect that if our ancestors looked at where we are with regard to the reconciliation project, and with regard to the race discourse, and with regard to the material conditions of those who are not white, I think they will be bitterly disappointed.
Why do you not see 1994 as an achievement, but as a breakthrough?
I think there has been a mistake on the part of many to see 1994 as an end, whereas it is a means to an end. And it is a means to an end because when we fought against apartheid and against colonialism, we fought for a society that would be qualitatively better than apartheid. But that in itself would not be an end, but the means towards another end, the emergence of a society that is qualitatively better even than the antithesis of apartheid society itself. So 1994 was an opportunity, nothing more, nothing less, just an opportunity for us to start creating the kind of South Africa we want to be, a country that is at peace with itself, a country that is prosperous for all, a country that is not being ravaged by the dogs of inequality, poverty, and unemployment.
You say one of the reasons the South Africa we fought for is struggling to be born is in fact in the name of non-racialism and the illusion of a post-racial future. Unnecessary compromises were made, and some of them are in the Freedom Charter. What compromises are you talking about?
I think that the compromises started before the CODESA negotiation process. For instance, in the Freedom Charter, you have a clause which says South Africa belongs to all who live in it. To this day, I do not understand what necessitated the clause. And second, I don't understand what it means. I do understand that the Freedom Charter was a product of struggle, a struggle against the dispossession of the black majority. And that formulation, to me, does not sufficiently speak to that reality. It glosses over that reality to declare that we all have a claim, to put it narrowly, to this land we call South Africa. I do suspect quite strongly that the one person who came up with that idea did not have as uppermost in his mind the interests of black people. I do suspect very strongly that we may have to revisit the meaning of this clause and question whether this clause was not an act of further disenfranchisement, the disenfranchisement of the black majority. And secondly, question the motives behind it. And at the end of that re-examination, we may come back to the position we're in today and accept that it was not an error to formulate this dream in that manner, or maybe the aim behind it was not as noble as it appears at face value. Because imagine the situation where you steal my bicycle, or you take it by force, and after that we declare that this bicycle belongs to both of us. I think there's something that does not sit very well with me with that formulation. That is not to argue, because there are those who are going to read things into what I'm saying that I'm not saying. That is not to argue that not all South Africans belong here. That's a separate matter altogether. So I'm differentiating between whether we all belong here, and we do, and whether South Africa belongs to all of us, which I think we must discuss.
You also speak about the demons that have killed the African National Congress. You mentioned Marikana saga, as well as the recent case of more than 100 mentally ill patients that died due to Gauteng health negligence. Is it late for our government to self-correct?
Well, it is seldom the case that political organizations and political institutions, including governments, self-correct. They correct themselves under pressure when there are changes in the political environment that are disadvantageous to them, which means they do not self-correct. They correct under pressure, and therefore they are corrected by external circumstances. You know, the ANC missed an opportunity after the Marikana massacre to examine what it has become and to examine what its government has become and to examine what the post-apartheid state has become. Because what happened in Marikana had been coming for more than 150 years of dispossession of land and mineral rights. And it was therefore quite tragic that it was a post-apartheid police service and therefore a post-apartheid state acting in defense of mining capital that decided to kill miners fighting for their rights. So the state had a choice to defend the rights of the working class, the poor, the downtrodden in the mining sector, or defend the interests of the powerful, the owners of the mines. And it chose the latter. Now you have life esidimeni. I think life esidimeni again is emblematic of what we have become, of what the ANC has become, of what the state and the government have become under the ANC. This is a state and a government that has become disconnected from those the ANC fought for during the liberation struggle. For me, there is no higher level of disconnection than what we see in life esidimeni, where the plight of the most vulnerable, the weakest in some ways amongst us, who cannot defend themselves, who cannot fend for themselves, who cannot look after themselves, are under a state that not only ignores their plight, but worsens it to the point of death and beyond. So life esidimeni to me is not just about the state killing mentally ill patients, but life esidimeni is a metaphor for what we have become under the ANC, what our government has become under the ANC, and what the post-apartheid state has become under the ANC.
Why do you think that too many in our political class and economic elites are refusing to live by the moral code that our ancestors left for us?
There are many reasons. One of them is the quality of those who are in government today. And we must avoid the errors of generalization. There are many good people in our government. There are many good people in the ANC. But that does not help us in any way. If in balance, what defines our conditions are those who are not. And that is our situation at the moment. The quality of the leadership available to us, the quality of those the ANC has deployed to the state is partly the reason why South Africa is not what it should be in terms of how many of our dreams have become deferred and are being deferred even further. So that's one thing. But material conditions are important in two ways. Firstly, the quality of leadership we have we have is of a nature and character that is desensitized and is not sensitive to the lived reality of those who are poor and those who are working class or downtrodden in different ways. And therefore what we have in the leadership available to us in the ANC and the state, on balance, are people who have become desensitized because of their own material conditions to the material conditions of the other. So the life they lead, the material conditions they are exposed to, which are much better than those of the average South African, desensitize them to the material conditions of others who are South African.
Your last statement said the false dimensions of the 1994 consensus must give way to an authentic reality. How so?
Well, we must first accept that there's an old or emerging false consensus about our post-apartheid reality. The elites enter into all sorts of pacts, have been doing so since 1994 and since before 1994. And what has tended to happen is for us to see the state of our post-apartheid condition through elite perspectives. So that's the first thing we need to do, to accept that and exercise ourselves and our country of these elite perspectives about what South Africa is and what it has become since 1994. But what it means also is that more and more South Africans need to activate their sense of agency. Yes, in August last year, the election results showed us that an increasing number of South Africans are prepared to activate their independent political free will and do so to the detriment of a political class that has become desensitized to their interests. But to desensitize your sense of agency is also about recognizing that elections alone are not going to change South Africa. Because there is a possibility, we're in the process of making a mistake, that what will change South Africa is merely to remove the ANC and replace it with another party, which is the same mistake we make about the economy. You know, when we talk about how the economy should be inclusive, and that we should loosen white hands' control over the economy, we assume that black capitalists will be different from white capitalists, as if the only determinant when it comes to how the economy will be managed and how resources will be distributed is racial. When in fact, the logic that excludes the majority from this economy is a logic that transcends race. It tends to coincide with whiteness today because whites are in charge of the economy. But it's not a logic that is limited to whiteness. If we accept that white people and black people are equally human, if we accept that, it is a logic that will transcend whiteness and extend to blackness. And therefore, it would be quite unfortunate for us to think all we need is to change the complexion of the economy and everything will be fine.
That was political analyst Oprima Jiqi speaking to Crema Media's Polity about South Africa struggling to be reborn.